The year was 718 AD. In the wake of their heavy defeat in the Great Siege of Constantinople, the Arabs evacuated Byzantine territory entirely. With this vital victory for the empire, the legitimacy of Emperor Leo III was now solidified. His next move was to baptize his son and heir, Constantine, kickstarting the rule of the new dynasty. This dynasty came to be known as Isaurian. However, its geographic origin was not in the mountains of Isauria. In fact, Leo III was born in Germanicaea, a Syrian city. On the Arab side, Caliph Umar set out stricter regulations against Christians in his domains and supposedly wrote a letter trying to convert Leo to Islam. The political chaos of the previous decades did not end immediately after Leo's ascension. Former Emperor Anastasius II returned from exile and, with Bulgarian help, marched on the capital. His insurrection failed and he was beheaded. Despite its remote location, warfare did not spare the island of Sardinia, which suffered a raid. In Anatolia, Arab incursions resumed. Major cities and fortresses like Dalisandos, Kamachon, and Iconion fell. The Anatolian Romans craved to end this instability and, to claim a stronger divine favor, became more willing to experiment with their faith. After all, if the Arabs claimed that their God is unique and true, surely there was something the Romans could learn from them. When Umar died, his successor Yazid enforced a ban on religious images in his realm. This was supposedly due to the machinations of a Jewish magician. Such an event had an impact on Leo's later religious policies. The emperor believed that the ceaseless Arab raids were caused by the Romans having displeased God. His first decision in this regard was to force baptize all Jews in the empire. This was a prelude to iconoclast religious reforms to come. However, Leo's fears were comprehensible. Despite the great victory in the siege of Constantinople, there was still no peace nor tranquility on any front, not even in the west. Slavic tribes had penetrated Greece down to its southernmost tip. In Italy, there was internal insubordination and external invasion. Pope Gregorius II opposed heavy taxation from the emperor, withholding the precious revenue for Constantinople. Further west, the Roman stronghold island of Corsica was lost forever, taken by the Lombards. Meanwhile, the eastern island of the Condominium of Cyprus also became victim to an Arab raid. Then, the frontier region of Cappadocia suffered a devastating attack against Caesarea, one of its most prosperous cities. Everywhere, the news was doom and gloom. The emperor was pressured to devise a solution. At this unfortunate moment, a volcanic eruption on the island of Thera sent literal and figural shockwaves all around the empire. Not accounting for the catastrophic damage, this event began a great rift in the history of Roman Christianity, as it is likely that now Leo was convinced that the Romans were being punished by God. The emperor was concerned about the status of God's chosen people, the Romans. Thus, he modified and updated the Corpus Juris Civilis of Justinian I with new laws to enforce Christian morality, publishing his Ekloge in Greek for a more Hellenized population. Then, the imperial government enacted a ban on all icons and religious images in the empire. This policy was met with stiff resistance by monastics and many of the western inhabitants of the empire. It was, however, far more popular among the army and the locals in Anatolia, where the emperor would bring military victories against the Arabs. Roman society was now divided between the iconoclasts, who supported the policy, and the iconodores who did not see the wrong in religious icons. At about this time, the administration also introduced a new silver coin, the miliarision. Accordingly to religious policies, these coins were not bearing any religious image other than a simple Christian cross. The reaction was immediate in the West. The Pope voiced his disapproval against iconoclasm, so the Exarch of Ravenna, Paulus, was ordered to depose him, but the army in Rome prevented it. The people of Ravenna rioted and killed their Exarch. In fact, the entire Exarchate rebelled against religious and tax reforms. Similarly, the Dux of Neapolis was torn apart by his own people as he carried out commands to destroy holy images. The Lombards were ecstatic. They took advantage and invaded the Exarchate, taking Bologna, Ancona, and other northern cities. Lastly, the population of Venice had by now elected their first Doge, showing yet another sign of opposition from Italy. The next hotspot of chaos was Greece. The Romans of the Hellasdos Thema and the Cyclades Islands revolted against what they saw as a heretical emperor, planning to crown a certain Cosmas in his place. Their failed seaborne assault on Constantinople caused the rebellion to collapse. After the revolt, the old naval Thema of the Carabisianoi was dissolved and replaced with the Thema Kiberaioton. Its capital was moved from the Cyclades to southern Anatolia, where Leo had more trustworthy commanders. Yet, iconoclasm was not unchallenged in Anatolia either. The Arabs under the semi-legendary Muslim leader Abdallah al-Battal besieged Nicaea. The siege failed, allegedly due to the procession of icons from its citizens. While Arab forces flooded border territories on a yearly basis, thematic armies operated in the Anatolian defensive apparatus. Although outmatched most of the time, they kept watch on enemy movements, defended, followed, pursued, and, at times, counterattacked. Looking back west, the Lombard king solidified control over northeast Italy, even taking the port of Ravenna. The new exarch, a resourceful man named Eutychius, escaped. He then surprisingly attempted to ally with the Lombards against the rebellious Pope, who began exerting independence from Constantinople by allying with local Italian states. This shows how heavy the burden of the exarch was. Italy was slowly slipping from the Roman orbit. Then Eutychius launched a surprise counterattack and recaptured the port of Ravenna. All the while, Arab raids on Sicily intensified. Also confronting the religious policies of the emperor, Patriarch Germanos of Constantinople abdicated from his position. Immediately after that, Leo issued a new edict about iconoclasm, without much success. Despite internal conflicts, the Exarchate and the papacy still cooperated when it came to crushing an imperial usurper in central Italy. Now, Gregorius III was elected. He was the last pope of Rome to receive an imperial mandate, but he still organized the bishops of the city to attend a synod of opposition to iconoclasm, excommunicating its partisans. The complete defiance of his two most important religious authorities angered Leo. Like Justinian, he now resorted to Caesaropapism. Leo sent a large fleet to arrest the Pope, but the navy met with shipwreck on the sea. This was the last considerable imperial attempt against northern Italy. The emperor made up for his powerlessness in the north by weakening the Pope in the south, confiscating papal estates there, and separating the South Italian churches from Rome's jurisdiction. However, he could do nothing for now against the Arab raids on Sicily and Sardinia. Still, the Romans were not fighting a superhuman enemy. the Muslims could be defeated in battle. The Battle of Poitiers against the Franks marked the limits of the expansion of the Caliphate in the west. Likewise, a series of wars between the Khazars and the Umayyads, during the first few years of which the Arabs suffered losses, made Transcaucasia the eastern limits of their empire. Having witnessed the surprising victories of the Khazars, the emperor betrothed his son, Prince Constantine, with Khazar princess Tzitsak, cementing an alliance between the Romans and the Khazars. Gradually, the Romans were fighting back. With Greek fire, they successfully countered some Arab raids on Sicily and took important prisoners. Muawiyah, a son of the Caliph who had been leading raids in Anatolia, died by falling from his horse. He was replaced by his brother, Suleiman. Unfortunately for the Romans, Suleiman resumed the intense and devastating raids deep into Anatolia, capturing forts, booty, and Roman prisoners. More despair set in as the Arabs launched several successful offensives into the homeland of the Khazars. The emperor could no longer count on solid military aid from his allies. The Lombard advances on Rome worried the Pope very much. He was able to ransom back a papal castle, but this made him more cooperative with the Exarch. This was much appreciated, as a surprise attack on Ravenna made the city fall from Roman control. Exarch Eutychius fled to Venice, but this time Pope Gregorius III lent his support to the imperial forces. The Romans retook Ravenna with troops from Istria. Good thing was, if the Roman frontiers were disintegrating, so were the Umayyads. Egypt saw a Coptic revolt, and there may also have been a Roman naval attack on Damietta. Meanwhile, to the west, Arabs in Ifriqiya contemplated conquering Sicily, but this plan failed due to a massive Berber revolt. As the Arabs launched yet another attack on Anatolia, Leo saw an opportunity. Rarely would the thematic armies aim to face the Arabs in open battle, but this time was different. The emperor and his son personally gathered the army and took to the field. The resulting Battle of Akroinon was the first major field victory the Romans won against the Muslims, and the last highlight of Leo's reign. This defeat contributed to the decline of Umayyad power and caused a halt in Arab advances in Anatolia. Among the many slain were Abdullah al-Batal and other key commanders, while another enemy contingent escaped back to Syria. The emperor reversed the tides of conquest, and soon the Romans could go on the offensive in the east. Father and son returned to the capital in triumph, an event which bolstered the legitimacy of iconoclasm. Sadly, right after this crowning glory, Leo III passed away. His son Constantine V acceded to the throne, ready to carry on his father's legacy. But the new emperor faced a significant rival for the throne, an old friend of his father, Artabasdos. The reign of Leo III began not differently from that of his immediate predecessors. Despite the massive victory at the siege of Constantinople, Arab attacks continued, and it seemed nothing had changed. However, far from a short-lived usurper, the new emperor remained in power and solidified his legitimacy. As his reign began with a triumph, it ended with another one at Akroinon, which finally halted the unstoppable Muslim advance. Despite consistency and success in the east, Leo's iconoclast policies divided Roman society. Byzantine Italy was in a constant downward spiral. The Exarchate was melting away, as was imperial authorities over the papacy. Far from breaking from Leo's policies, the new monarch, Constantine V, would continue in his father's footsteps.